Great to talk to you too.
Yeah, so I've been receiving various questions from people on a number of different topics: aerospace medicine, the round two interviews, a little bit about round three, and some miscellaneous questions. So it'd be great if you could just help to clarify some of this. How long do you have available to speak for?
Oh, I have 2 hours or more.
Oh well, it won't be anywhere near that long. But yeah, so thanks very much. Yeah, well, just I imagine it's a bit of a bit different from you being interviewed by someone else after this. Hopefully you've caught up on your sleep at least.
Oh, yeah, no problem at all. Um, Questions first.
Yeah,
A lot of people ask about the interview. You want to hear, I can go through the question and explain what I was looking for and how they were answered. Is that
Oh,
something you're
absolutely.
interested
That
in?
that that would be something that people are in. So I know a lot of people are interested in what you saw as the most important selection criteria based on your interviews with the candidates.
Exactly. Also, okay, so I think we go through the questions and I explain to each of them what were the answers, what I'm looking for. So
Yeah, excellent.
the first one was, tell me about the day when you decided to settle on Mars with no return and why. So this question was basically, what are they looking for? So some of them said they want to be astronauts. Astronauts is nice, then you go on into the space station. In our case, it's just a flight to Mars, but the rest of your life is settling on Mars. So if that is the priority, then it's not really the correct place. It's not that I selected him out immediately according to that, but it gives a point where I say, does he really know what he wants to do? The
Okay.
second one is about, I want to do adventure. I said, adventure, you go in the jungle, you go deep diving, you go to Himalaya, but it's not an adventure, it's a lifetime commitment. Adventures are normally very short, and then you come back. So that gives me an idea. Does he really understand what the Mars One mission is about? Does he really know what we want to do? We want a settlement on Mars and not just an adventure or be an astronaut. So there's one of the key. Are you back? Yeah, you're
Yes, I'm
back.
back. Sorry.
Okay. This is one of the key issues. For the first one, if somebody had it a lifeline dream, or he just figured it out, oh, yesterday I got the idea I want to go to Mars, this didn't matter. So that makes no difference at all. But it is, what is the main purpose? Then the second question, that is a little bit a trickier one. The second question was, tell me a story from your life, what you bring to a group. And most of them could not answer that question, actually, because if I ask a story of a life and you give me his biography, doesn't mean he did anything with it. I
Yeah.
mean, you can have your PhD, you can have your MD, whatever it is, but can you actually use it? You know, I mean, I can learn everything and have my diploma about surgery, but can I really operate a patient? You know?
Hmm.
So most of them really missed out on that. And then come others, which were interesting, and this leads, so the questions are connected in a way. So if he tells me, oh, I'm a leader and I'm good in leading and telling the people what to do, and then he doesn't know the knowledge question, I say the only way you're leading them is in a disaster. Because you have no
Yeah.
basis of what do you do with them. Or another one come up with saying, oh, I'm a team and I know about teams and team have to be this and this and this. It's good he talks about. And then you come to the last question, and I will come to that in a little bit later. And he asks us, he answers about him, totally selfish, what he wanted to do. He didn't care about the teammates, he didn't care about the settlement, just about
Hmm.
himself. So you see this as a combined one. So there was the testing. So at
Testing
least,
consistency at least.
no,
Yeah.
the first one, it was inconsistent because the
Yeah.
first one is that he knows what to do with teams, and then he's just about himself.
Hmm.
So as you see, he's not the team player he claims to be, basically.
Hmm.
You know? The knowledge questions. So the knowledge questions had a lot of reasons. So one reason is the reporters asked me, is it ethical that we sent them to Mars? And I said, it is ethical if I explain to them and tell them what the risks are. But I said, I go one step further. I ask them, do they actually know what they are getting into? And if they are not know what they are getting into, why do they really apply for it?
Hmm.
You know? So they are not, I can say they are not serious enough, but they haven't thought it through in a way. Because if I go somewhere which is a hostile environment, then I want to know, does Mars 1 give me enough oxygen? How is the radiation? How is the radiation sheltering? And my questions, knowledge questions, were only based about risk and survival. That was not the topic which were actually asked.
Yeah, because that was one thing I was wondering, because I know that we were sent study material about kind of like Mars and Mars science in general. So I was just wondering if, so did you kind of send that in order to just generally educate us about Mars, about that playing into the interview? I just wondered about kind of the logic behind that.
Yeah, so the key piece was general education, that you get familiar with the topic when anybody asks you, you have a knowledge. But my questions were really focused on survival and risk taking. So can you, when you look at the whole things you have to learn about, can you pick out which is really important, or you just learn something which is really unnecessary? You don't really need to know how many satellites are going up and what the name of the satellite is. It has nothing to do with your survival on Mars. So can you really filter what's important and really study that? And one of the key pieces is I ask numbers. And the reason for that is that nobody can say, oh, he didn't understand me, oh, I meant it differently. You know the number or you don't. And data are key important, because you have to know immediately how quickly you switch your valve to get to the right number back, to give enough oxygen to your colleague. You cannot say, oh, can I look at my study material?
Yeah, exactly.
He's dead until you do that, you know. So this was, and it was enough time for everybody to study if he was interested. And I say always, it was not a telephone book. I didn't give somebody a telephone book, a topic they have no relation to. This is what they really claim to do. This is what they really want to do in their life. And if you don't take the time to study it, why do you apply?
You're not demonstrating that it's a lifelong commitment if you haven't took out a few hours or a few days to study the material.
And it was not much. I mean, as you can see, it was not really much. So if you don't want to spend the time, how can you say you really, this is what you want to do in your life? And it's a lifetime commitment. So it's not applying for university or college or whatever it is. And I don't give them choices like you have in university, 3-5 choices of what you do.
Yeah, you don't get multiple choice for Mars.
Right, the environment does not give you a choice. You know the number or you don't know the number. No? So this is about the knowledge question. And they were really picky about that. So if you got a first question, you are more or less out. Because the others who knew the question. So it's not, and I explained that a couple of times, it's not if you were suitable to go on, are others better than you? And we picked the ones who are better. And there were some, as you know from yourself, who just knew 1, 2, 3, bam, 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 and going on. The last question, that was an interesting, tricky question. After 3 years on Mars, given the opportunity that a return flight will be possible, will you take the trip?
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting question.
Very few really thought it through and could answer it correctly. So the thought here is, what are you thinking about your teammates? Will you leave them alone or not? Do you understand what the purpose of Mars 1 is? The purpose of Mars 1 is to settle on Mars, to help everybody who comes up there, because after 3 years you have the experience. So when you have the first 4 coming in, the second group barely settles in, and then you say, bye-bye, I'm going home, because...
Yes, it defeats the entire objective of the mission if you're just going to pack your bags after 3 years or so. That's not the goal at all.
Exactly, and a lot of them were disappointed. I selected them out according to that. So they could have known the knowledge question. It didn't matter if they can't answer the last one, because the whole purpose is to completely go on and said, oh, I go back to Earth and tell the people what's happening on Mars. I'm saying, are you kidding me? 18 hours, you're on television. They know what's happening on Mars. You don't need to go in person and be the hero and be... This is a selfish reason, you know? And this, I come back to the second one, when they tell, oh, I'm a team player and all the teams and all these things. And then in the last question, I say, do you have anything else to tell me which is not selfish? And they didn't have anything. So they didn't think they leave the teammates alone. They didn't think the newcomers need the help because they have the experience, the knowledge how to deal with things. They're not even thinking about that.
That's really incidentally, was the round 2 selection entirely based on the interview, or did you look at other external factors such as material we'd submitted in previous rounds?
No, No, it was absolutely only for that. I did not look
Okay.
what's in previous round or whatever. It was just because of these topics in
Okay.
how they were selected for the 100 basically. Now they're 99.
Yeah, so I know I've received some messages from some of the candidates who unfortunately didn't pass, and they're wondering how they can stay involved in Mars One and still help out with human expansion into space, and if you had any ideas on how they could stay involved.
Yeah, so they have to write to Susanne if they want to do some voluntary work, but they can always reapply to. So it's not gone away for somebody who reapplies. And I got one question from one applicant. He said, "Oh, do we have to do all things again?" And I said, "The only thing you don't need to do again is the medical certificate."
Yes, that's it. Because I know some people were very much like they didn't want to have to pay a huge fee again to have the medical. So that's good news.
So if you do not have a major illness which suddenly occurs, then you don't have to repeat that. That is not necessary.
Yeah, and on the topic of reapplying, actually, I was wondering whether you think future selection rounds will be more streamlined. Do you think it will take 2 years from start to finish again, or do you think it will be more rapid in the future?
Can't say about that actually. So it depends. We wanted to do this with a broadcaster, and the broadcaster didn't jump in. So it depends. It's not. I could have done it streamlined, but if you want a broadcaster, you have to wait. If they say yes,
of
you
course.
want to do it, and this is the hold up. So this is for the next round. The same hold up are the broadcaster basically. No other broadcaster who does the production company. Now you can. So this is the basic holdup. It's not from our side. We are limited from outside from us too, basically. No?
Yeah. Okay, so now I have a few questions about round 3 that some people have sent in. So firstly, we know there's going to be group challenges based on what you've said previously. So I was wondering how many people do you envision being in each group, and will they be grouped by region or by other factors?
No, so there are a lot of issues running in the next round. So at first, you will find young group mates.
Okay.
So I will give everybody, it has nothing to do with select out at all or select in. They get a sheet, and I suggest to them really study what they like and what they don't like in a daily life. So I try to give everybody a support sheet where they answer the question, I like bald people, I like hairy people, I like body smell, I don't like body smell, I like messy, I don't like messy, and so on. Okay. So in such details, I like the socks in the living room, I don't like the socks in the living room. I like the toothpaste rolled up, or the dishes have to be washed before I go to bed.
Interesting.
It's a living together. These little things explode if you don't fit with each other.
Okay.
So, and according to these lists, we tell, hey, you a similar group and you a similar group. You can still choose whomever you want, but if you choose somebody who is different for you, it won't work out, believe me. Then it goes down. Just really get annoying.
Yeah, that's right. So, sorry, do you know how large the groups are going to be?
I think it depends on what challenges we do. It can be 15, can be 10.
Okay.
So it can be 20. It depends always how they will change. The group sizes will change.
And can you pick anyone anywhere around the world? Because I imagine obviously it's an international selection round. So I'm just wondering about how it works by obviously people being on different continents or different regions.
No, I say always try to make it international as possible and age different as possible.
Okay. But as much diversity as possible, definitely.
Yeah. So one applicant said to me, "Oh, but no, you have only 2 from South America and so on." I said, "Yes, but I'm not jeopardizing the mission or the crew members because you're coming from South America. So that I'm not jeopardizing the internationality for the ability to work together to get a successful mission."
Okay. So I was wondering if you knew kind of in a broad sense when about we can expect the group changes to beginning. Are we talking like a month, 2 months? Any estimate?
Oh, I would think mostly autumn earliest.
Oh, so round 3 won't really start until the autumn. Okay, when would round 4 fit into that then?
It depends. All I tell you, the broadcaster. No, round 3.
Okay.
That's immediately in the 4. From round 3, you go immediately down to 4. So it's not that there will be nearly no time between 3 and 4.
Okay, I see. Because so can you confirm I've heard before that is it 50 people that will get selected to go through to the fourth round? Is that correct?
We can say we will see, will be a lot less. Yes, that's right. But we do, so the outside, let's call it outside activities with the 100, and then we narrow it down and put them in the isolation.
And the isolation is the fourth round. Is that correct?
Exactly. And this is
okay.
pretty immediately after.
Okay.
So there's not, it will be, I think, even in the same area, basically. So if we pick a place like, say, it won't be there, let's give me a place, Australia, for example. It won't be in Australia. Let's say it's in Australia. Huh? So the round three will be in Australia, and the isolation chamber is already there. So then you go immediately in the isolation chamber.
That's really interesting, because I know some people have asked me about, they're wondering about the kind of time commitments that round three would involve.
We try to narrow it down approximately for 2 weeks that some people can take vacation.
Okay, so yeah, because I know some people are concerned about how long they'd have to take out from work, for example. So
yes,
so you're talking about getting all of the candidates together for round three effectively for about a 2-week period?
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. So basically the first half, what would you recommend that we should be doing in, say, the first half of 2015 then, to kind of prepare for this if it's not happening till later on in the year?
What you should do? No, the first thing, look what you like and what you don't like.
Okay.
Because that's something really people have to reflect on themselves. You saw it on question number 2 when I said, tell me a story for life, and they can't. They haven't even reflected how they actually support a group or how they work with a group. Huh? So it's much more difficult to reflect what you like and what you don't like, and to the smallest details you can come up with, because the more you match in your daily lives, the better living you have together with the person. The only 100% fix is 50% male, 50% female. That is fixed for every group. That will be in every group. That's the only constant. But the rest, as I said, we try to mix it as possible, as much as possible.
So I'm wondering, sorry, go ahead.
There will be studying too. So there will be outside activities, but also every day you have to study, and the next day you will test it on that. Because and this is the key piece, we teach you in all this, in geology, in medicine, electroengineering, and so on, over the next 10 years, and we don't want to have people there who can't keep up, and then we have to select them out. So we are checking the studying ahead of time, because some applicants said, oh, you will teach me. I said, what are you thinking, what we did so far? You have to learn it yourself. I cannot give you intravenous, the basic, and then you have to learn it first from a book and from a text, and then we build up on that. But you have to learn the basics from a book, and that will be also in the next round. So studying will be a big part too.
Interesting. So I was wondering if you could give us a kind of broad idea on what kind of challenges we could expect in the next round. Are you talking physical challenges, mental challenges, psychological?
Mental, as I mentioned, you have to study different topics at different days, and the next day you will have a challenge. I give you a challenge, for example, a scavenger hunt or whatever, where you have used your knowledge and you have to work as a team. So how well do you work in a team? And conflict can happen. The question is, how do you solve this conflict? That's what we are looking at. How do you really be able to solve the conflict in a group? And it is hard. I mean, every group is happy when they're successful. But as you know from your own experience, when you're not successful, do you start bickering and blaming and so on? So when I'm looking here, when some applicants say, oh, you didn't select me because of, oh, I didn't have time to study and the interview was too short and blah, blah, and all these things.
We had plenty of time to study. We had like over a month at least, in some cases much more.
The person who started at the beginning of December had 1 month, but you had the choice to have 2 or 3 months. No? And I say, if you make excuses, everybody else is bad and everything else is bad, then you're the wrong person, because you don't even look at yourself what you could have done better.
You've got to be deeply self-reflective, and if there's something that, I mean, in my case, I know that I like to identify ways that I can improve, that I can get better at things, because you can't just blame everything on everything external. You've got to criticize yourself continually if you want to become a better person.
Exactly, and that's, I mean, you cannot be on Mars and blame everybody, because the environment doesn't care if you blame it or not.
Yeah, you can't just be standing out in a dust storm like yelling at the sky, how dare you, and
exactly. I had 2 night shifts last night. Environment doesn't care how many night shifts you have to do your job.
Yeah. So yeah, I was wondering if you had any ideas about how TV broadcasts will link in with the third round. Are you intending to have it all filmed,
Naturally.
or any ideas?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's why we have to wait for the podcast because
Right.
third round will be filmed. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Well, it certainly sounds interesting. So, from the sounds of it, having a 2 week residential almost towards the end of the year with round three, and you mentioned that there'll be some things leading up to that, material to learn, for example. Uh, are there any other things apart from the residential that are planned to be filmed, perhaps in the lead up?
No, no, not leading up. So the key is in this, only what we lead up to that is that I will send, when the time comes, a paper you fill out what you like, what you dislike,
Okay,
basically,
right.
on a scale. But when you're there, then you have to study at the same time.
Okay.
So that's more. And then you run immediately in the isolated environment to see, can you actually stand it? Because most applicants were never in an isolated environment. So can they actually stand? Can they actually stand the colleagues and so on?
Oh yeah, I'm certainly, because I mean I say when I look at myself, I don't know if I'll be able to cope with isolation because you don't really experience that in the modern world. I'm certainly interested to see, but yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. So I was wondering in terms of how the selection for the third round works, because obviously if you're in a group of 10 to 15 people, I assume you're not just say picking everyone from group A or everyone from group B. So I was wondering how you differentiate between candidates in the third round.
And in third round, we have additional help from ray cars, as you saw, and gym cars.
Yeah.
And we did these studies with these groups 10 to 15 and so on in NASA before. So she will ask probing questions, and she's very good, and she gets the best and the worst out of people, to say it in an easy way.
Okay.
So the interesting thing was that the applicants talked with me later, said we liked each other until she asked us questions. Then we started to hate each other.
That's interesting.
So that's something when your things you want to hide in front of others suddenly come to the surface.
Hmm.
And how do the others react to it? Oh, this guy is actually very different than I thought what he is, and so it's so she's very, very good on that, and that will be an exciting part for everybody to learn. And even as always, even if you don't make it, you can reapply, but you learn so much about yourself, what you can always use in your life later on.
Yeah. And incidentally, I've heard that you're writing a book with them actually, Mars One: The Human Factor. So I was wondering if you had any kind of update about how that was coming along.
This will be, they changed it to November. It will come out.
Okay.
However, it's a little bit different because it's more. So we invited our advisors and knowledgeable people to talk about specific topics. It will be very interesting, but different from the selection process, to put it in that way.
Okay.
But ray cars and gym cars will have a very big part in it too, so it will be exciting to read, that's for sure.
Oh, I'm certainly looking forward to it. So now I have some more general questions. So I've one here. Someone's wondering what is your biggest concern regarding the health of the astronaut? Is it the radiation on the way to Mars, or the zero gravity that they will endure during the journey?
My biggest concerns are kidney stones.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. Can you elaborate a bit?
See, that's a different issue because when the bones demineralize, you have a higher possibility to get kidney stones. So that is something where I want to work on and see how can we avoid that and how we can deal with it, basically. I mean, they get the medical experience, but a kidney stone is not always an easy thing. So we have to think, what can we do in that issue, because that's the result of bone demineralization. The rest doesn't matter. I mean, the zero gravity, because you come on Mars, you are, I say always, like Superman. You have far more bone density than you need, you have muscle density you need. Radiation, that is more point of psychology rather of medical issues, because it's the small radiation shelter. As you learned, you have this water tank you have to hide, and put yourself in a situation, you're with 3 other people in this very small room for 2 to 3 weeks. You don't have a shower, you don't have a toilet, then you have to spend it like in a little kitchen together. So that's not a lot of people can actually do. So that's not an easy thing, but we will practice that on Earth ahead of time. So it's more in that direction the problem, because if you stay longer there, you will be against radiation protected by that. So this is less of a concern. It's more the psychological is the bigger issue. And one of them we cannot test ahead of time is you leave Earth and you fly to Mars. But there comes a time period where you do not see Earth anymore.
And of course, we've never had that before with long duration human space flights. So we don't know how people are going to cope with that a priori.
And you don't see Mars yet. So
just drifting through the void.
Exactly, and that's what I want to look, how they cheer each other up, how they can support each other to overcome this period we cannot simulate. This is one of the keystones. And then in the moment you see Mars, everything changes. You say, oh yeah, we're going there and we're doing this, and then you get busy and all these things. But this void between, this is one of the toughest periods. So that is definitely something where I have to look, do they really support each other? How do they work together with each other? Do they think about each other? And that's the question number 5. That's the last question in the interview. Do you actually think about the other, or you always think about yourself? And even if I ask, can you tell me something else which is not selfish? Then you get an idea. You know, so that is the problem. That was I was looking at.
That's interesting. So I have another question. Someone's wondering, is it possible that we could produce any kind of medicine locally on Mars, or are we just limited with supplies from the Earth?
So I said, what we send to Mars are mature people. So we will give as much as we can knowledge, but you will come up with your own things. And I hope sooner or later, the goal is you getting independent as soon as possible, which starts independence on water, oxygen, and food, and then you can produce everything up to computer to rockets or whatever it is. So that's the actual goal, independence as soon as possible. And different from the space station, we don't tell you what to do, basically. We give you a specific framework when we need some research done, and you reply back to us. But it's more up to you guys on Mars, because, and it makes no sense to tell you what to do because we are not there. We are not in that environment. So only you guys really know what to do in the right moment and then confer with us forth and back. But in the end, you have to solve it by yourself. And some applicants ask me, hey, in groups of 4, which structure do you really have? And I tell them, I don't care what structure you have. You have a military, you have an anarchy, you have a democracy. You have to prove that your group is as good or better than the other groups.
That's an interesting idea. Okay.
No matter how you do it. And that's why I want to do. And it's this, what I'm focusing here is experiential learning. So you use one structure, and if you're a very good group, you figure out, oh my God, this doesn't work, and you switch quickly.
Yeah.
And you improve, and then you're better than the others. Or you're stuck in your structure, and then you're just out.
I do like the almost kind of Darwinian approach to creating the structure that we'll use on Mars. That's really interesting. I'm sure people will be fascinated to see how that develops.
Yeah, and the key piece is, if you experience here what's the best, you will use it on Mars because you have experienced this, not we are telling you what to do. You know, so what I want, they give you basics, but in the end, you have to do the work by yourself. So you have to study by yourself. You're very interested in, you have to try to understand the whole concept, because on Mars, we are not there holding hand.
Yeah.
So we don't need people who needs get the hand hold and say, no, today you study or you have to be there. And I said it's also different from the, I don't know how it's in the UK, but it's in the American university, you have to be in a classroom and you get the check. I don't care if somebody comes to the lessons or not. It's like in Austria where I had university. Nobody cared if you had the lecture or not.
Oh no, it's the same here in the UK, just so long as at the end of the day you produce results, so they don't mind how you personally learn.
Exactly, but in America it's very different. In America they check you if you're in a classroom or not, and if you're not in a classroom you get a minus note and so on. So it's a very different approach of learning.
Okay.
But I'm going with the European one and say you don't need to be there, but you have to produce the right thing in the end. However you do.
That's interesting. So another medical question then. Do you have any kind of estimate for what the life expectancy might be like for people on Mars as opposed to on the Earth?
It's a tricky question because we haven't tried it out.
Of course, yeah.
So let's think it through logically. It's saying they have the most healthiest food you can get, basically. You know, you don't have this fatty meat or whatever it is, the cholesterol high and so on. So you get the most healthiest food, and you have a at least every 2 days a medical checkup, because each of them has a medical training and they have to do medical checkups. They have dental cleaning all the time. So the life expectancy in general should be much longer than it is on Earth. And due to the gravity, your cardiovascular system is not so heavy, and your bones are not really, because you have a lot of space left with your bone density. So it is, from the point of view, the life expectancy, what it looks like to me, should be actually a lot longer. Now we're talking about stress. Stress is a point, but it's not as much stress, I think, as the people think it is, because I was in isolation myself for 110 days. I didn't mind about the environment. It didn't make no stress at all. The only problem was the interpersonal relationships and the troubles with it, not the environment itself. So that didn't matter. So if you don't mind to be in a tin can, basically, and people get used to it. I didn't mind. I could have stayed 1, 2, 3, 5 months, whatever longer. It didn't matter to me, because I knew what I do with my time. And this is another point we're looking at, is about boredom. So if somebody gets bored, then he has to be out, because
well, if you get bored on Earth when you're only in a simulation for weeks or months at a time, it's not particularly promising towards lifetime on Mars.
Right. So because somebody asked me, how do you check for creativity? And I said, I check for the opposite. I check for boredom. If somebody is bored, then he's not creative enough to know what to do with his time. So he lacks the creativity.
Okay.
So you just look at the opposite to get the other side done.
Okay. So another question, someone's been wondering if there's basically what will happen as certain Martian settlers start to age, and will they be taken care of by younger colonists? What will happen towards the end of their life?
Well, as I said, you are mature. You will decide when you're on Mars, and there's a lot of things to decide. So you will decide. I mean, if somebody ages, it doesn't mean he's not useful. You know what I know?
Well, particularly if they're a reservoir of knowledge, particularly if they've been there for decades by that point.
So it doesn't mean, and they will be bright and they will be helping and with knowledge, and he might not go out every 3 times a week with a spacesuit, because this might be not as easy. But he can sit in a control room, and he is very experienced about all the measurements and know how to ahead of time to give the warning ahead of time to do that. So very useful. So it's not that they are becoming useless in any way.
Okay. And jumping back a bit, one question I forgot to ask about the first. So you've mentioned that there'll be some kind of residential stay effectively for 2 weeks. I know some clients are concerned, particularly after the medicals, they obviously had to pay for those and they didn't want to get priced out of it. So will Mars One provide travel expenses for that residential towards the end of this year?
It's not about Mars, it's about a production company. I think so in general they do. I really,
that's good.
So I was never part of a reality show. But if you look at normal reality shows, I think they provide the tickets.
Okay, that'll be a relief.
Yeah, so as far as I know, they do that, and all the staying there, the hotel and so on. So if you look up, you have a lot in America, and I always see, sometimes I see they putting a ticket out, but I didn't see anybody who is invited to such an event is paying anything by themselves. So food and place to stay and so on will be provided, I'm pretty sure, from the broadcasting company.
Okay. And I think I just have, well, one final question from the top of my head. I was wondering if you had any rough idea on whenabouts you expect the selection process to reopen? Because I know there's a lot of people who didn't get the chance originally, or who want to reapply, who are interested.
From my point of view, it cannot open before we are down to 24.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So that gives you an approximate answer. So since we lay on a broadcaster, I don't know, the broadcaster suddenly says, oh, we want to do it now and we do it in the summer, you know? But we haven't gotten any answer from that to say when they really want to start, and we really are blocked on that.
Okay.
So my estimate is autumn. I don't think they will do it sooner, because they are more slower than they are faster in general, but you never know what happened.
Yeah.
And that's why I can't say, and this again gives you the time when they can reapply.
Okay, well, I think that's all the questions I have, unless there's anything else that you'd like to add.
No, I think I have most of the topics I want. I'm just thinking, let me through what applicants wrote in them, because I do not answer to any applicant back why we were not selected. Because it's a never ending. I cannot answer the 450 why not. So let's try to get some topics out. Yeah, some people thought Skype was not recorded. No, I had some Skype interviews because Parker didn't work. Skype was recorded too. Yeah, and some thought it was decided earlier we selected. No, it was not decided earlier at all. Okay. So some get the ideas. Yeah, as I said before, they blame everything else except looking about themselves.
Yeah, I mean, like I can tell in the UK, for example, because after the selection, we've now got, by residency at least, 7 females and 1 male. So it's obviously not that there's just some kind of set quota based on gender or anything like that. So did you literally just score? I know you just literally scored people based on the interview, and then top 100 got through?
Yeah, no, I split up males and females. Right. So females were competing with females and males were competing with males. They were not competing against each other. Then I looked for the best 50 males and the best 50 females.
Okay.
So that's how it's looked at, because then I need to have 50-50. And in the future also females will not compete with males at all. So it's always males with males, females with females. So it is, of course, I mean, if you are not so good male, but everybody else is worse, then you have a chance to go But these things don't easily happen because we have very, very good applicants. One thing is, what I found, it was in a really question, I think you didn't get that question, but it was an interesting one when I said, which non-critical systems, for example, are you shutting down?
During a global dust storm, yeah.
And interestingly, I think only one applicant came up with a recycling system. What shows me that the applicants are not yet ready to think what happens on Mars. They're still thinking in the current environment, oh yeah, I just go to the toilet and flush. That's it. But on Mars, you have to recycle everything. In an isolation chamber, they will have to recycle everything too. So
let's not forget as well that you kind of have to recycle everything purely from an avoiding planetary contamination. That's also an issue, of course. You can't just go dumping things out on the surface. Yeah,
but you also want to have more water back.
Of course, yes. You don't run out of water.
You just want to get rid of the water and flush it down, you know? So, and they haven't really yet figured out what it is. And I try to get them think about what you're really doing on Mars, what it is, and get into these thoughts and forget this earthly things you do in your daily life. It's very different. It changes a lot. So
yeah, I imagine the isolation gym, for example, and simulation missions is probably the best way to get that kind of concept.
But yeah, but you still can think it so ahead of time. What actually changes to my normal life, what I'm used to, basically, and that changes a lot. Okay. So yeah, so that was just some interesting things. Oh, nice one. That's pretty much it.
Okay, well, it was an absolute pleasure to speak to you again, and I hope that you get many well-deserved nights of rest after interviewing 660 of us. Oh, incidentally, I know someone asked him, of those 660, how many actually went through with the interviews? They're wondering if some people just weren't able to have them for whatever reason.
Yes, so some of them went out. I have to look how many I had. I think 560 in the end, so 100 less.
Okay.
560, 570. So that's approximately. They will, and always people will drop out, and that's why we have the re-election again, without question, that they can come in back. And we also the groups, and this will be also always 1 or 2 groups will go home every year. So you're never safe, I think, until you sit in the rocket. Because everybody say, oh, they are selected first. I said, no, because we don't know what happened over time. So you have the choice anytime to quit, but on the other side, we have the choice to say, hey, you actually don't fit. This is not the right thing, and you had better ideas. So that's always the case. And it keeps you on your toes to keep up.
Yeah, no, it's always good knowing that you're always at a risk of getting dropped. So it means that you're always at your best, effectively. Because if you really want to go to Mars, then I know you've mentioned in a BBC interview that Mars will be a paradise in comparison to what you're going to be subjecting us to, which I know we all had a laugh at.
and that's yes, and you're right, and that's the key point. I don't want that you go on Mars and get it much harder than it's here. So if I can, how much with 3 cars and our team, how much we can challenge you when you go there and it's easy for you. That would be the goal we want to achieve, basically.
Okay, well, thanks very much for taking the time out of your. I'm sure you'll have a quite busy day, and I know all of us remaining round 3 candidates are really looking forward to getting the chance to meet and work with you at some point. Until then, bye for now, and thanks again for speaking to me.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.